In a lakeside sauna outside Kuopio, a man ladles water onto the stones and waits for the löyly to rise before anyone in the room speaks. "200 kilometers south, in Helsinki, the offices along Aleksantterinkatu empty by 4, and the crowds drain into Esplanadi Park to sit with a cinnamon roll and the last of the daylight. In a forest no one owns, hands fill a bucket with blueberries under a right written into law. This is Finland, not the silent, snowbound postcard, but a country arranged around quiet, daylight, and the woods at the edge of town. The world has named Finland happiest on earth 9 years running, and Finns are not convinced. There are roughly 3 million saunas for 5.5 million people, and the colder fact of 1939, when barely 3.5 million held the Red Army in the snow, then gave up Karelia forever. Jean Sibelius, born in 1865, gives that temperament a sound, bright, then suddenly grave. For the next half hour, the film follows a single Finnish day, from 4 o'clock to the steam, and asks why a quiet people keep disagreeing with their own good fortune. Morning arrives over Senate Square slowly, the way it tends to here. The pale, neo-classical facades and the green dome of Helsinki Cathedral, finished in 1852, stand over an expanse of grey cobblestone the city has never quite filled with noise. The square is monumental, built to impress. And yet, on an ordinary weekday, it wears its grandeur lightly, almost reluctantly, as though the country that raised these columns would rather not be looked at too directly. A few hundred meters along the water, the white marble of Finlandia Hall catches what light there is, the nation's official face, the room where the Republic presents itself to the world. Each March, that world arrives with a verdict. The World Happiness Report, drawing on Gallup survey data across more than 140 nations, has placed Finland first for 9 consecutive years, longer than any country before it. The fact is delivered here, without celebration. The Finnish philosopher Frank Martela, who has spent years studying why his country keeps topping the table, has noted that Finns themselves are often the first to doubt the result, and that what the survey captures may be less joy than a steady, unshowy contentment. The columnists in the national press greet the headline on the morning it lands with the same polite suspicion, noting that a people not given to declaring themselves content have somehow been declared the most content of all, and wondering aloud whether the report measures happiness or merely the absence of complaint. The disagreement is easier to see than to argue. Inside Oodi, the central library that opened beside Parliament in 2018, free to anyone who walks through the door, Several hundred people share one bright, top-lit room, and barely a word passes between them. In a window seat, a reader sits with a coffee going cold at the elbow, snow falling past the glass over the open square of Kansalaistory, turning pages, asking nothing of anyone. The building is full and almost silent, a whole city's worth of people choosing to be quietly, separately content in the same shared hush. Out on the street, the same instinct keeps its distances. At a bus stop in the cold, half a dozen people wait spread evenly along the shelter, each leaving the next a careful arm's length of empty air. Contentment that looks, to a visitor, almost indistinguishable from solitude. This is not loneliness, and the country resists the word. It is simply the shape happiness takes when it is never asked to perform. The feeling has its monuments, though they rarely raise their voice. In a small park to the west, 600 hollow steel pipes rise and cluster in the shape of a wave, welded together in 1967 to honor Jean Sibelius, a memorial that depicts not triumph so much as a sound, soaring one moment and severe the next. The national mood cast in metal rather than slogan. Across town, the Tempeliaukio Church, blasted and carved directly into bedrock and opened in 1969, gathers the same quiet under a wide copper dome, daylight falling through a ring of glass onto bare rock walls. The silence so complete that people lower their voices without being asked. It is the feeling the country prefers to any declaration, and it leaves the question the rankings cannot settle. Why does the happiest country on earth keep insisting, politely, that it is not? Perhaps happiness here was never the point. Perhaps it is only what is left when a quiet people finish what they started, pour one more ladle onto the stones, and walk, at 4, in the failing light, back into the woods that belong to all of them.
By 4 o'clock, the lights along Aleksanterinkaatu begin to go out, floor by floor, while the sky over the granite street is still bright enough to read by. The lifts fill and empty, the revolving doors turn, and the business district at the center of Helsinki releases its clerks into an afternoon that remains, by agreement, their own. The Finnish working day commonly ends here by 4. The pause that has shaped it since the morning, the kahvitauko, the coffee break, is no improvised habit, but a clause written into collective labor agreements, rest negotiated, signed, and kept. The last of these clerks step out into the light, and the building behind them goes quiet, a window at a time. Down the slope and through the double row of lime trees, the benches of Esplanadi Park begin to fill. The promenade has gathered the city's workers at the end of the day for more than a century, and the crowd that settles here now is, by the world's reckoning, among the happiest on earth, though it would rather the world did not say so. People sit. People watch the light. People say nothing to one another and seem, in the saying of nothing, entirely at ease, a takeaway cup balanced on each knee. The cup cools, and beside it, on a small table by a window, a pair of hands tears a cinnamon roll along its seam. The coffee has stopped steaming. The clock on the wall reads a few minutes past 4. Finns drink more coffee per head than any other nation on earth, something close to 4 cups a day. And the roll torn open here, its spiral of cardamom and sugar pressed flat in the Finnish way, is the pause given a shape a person can hold. Nothing about the moment asks to be photographed. It is simply rest, with a name and a taste. Outside, the long evening light refuses to leave. In Kuopio Park, where a wide slope of grass runs down toward the sea, blankets come out across the lawn, and the low sun lasts and lasts, barely setting at all in the weeks around midsummer. This is where the city formally ends its day, outdoors and unhurried, each group keeping its own quiet patch of green. Tove Jansson, who drew the Moomins and spent some 30 summers on a bare rock of an island off this same coast, built her whole working life around exactly this instinct, the discipline of withdrawing from work into light and water, and guarding the withdrawal as fiercely as the work itself. At the foot of the slope, the water takes over, because rest in this city, sooner or later, means the sea. By 6 in the evening, the sand at Hietaranta beach is crowded, towels close together, swimmers crossing the cold shallows without complaint. Out past the breakwater, the ferries run to Suomenlinna, the sea fortress laid across 6 islands from 1748, where families now spread their picnics among 18th century cannon and walk the grass ramparts until the light finally thins. The day has come down off the office floors, through the park and out into the archipelago, and the whole country, it seems, has agreed to be still. But the terrace chair, the harbour bench, the warm stone wall by the water, these are only the second best places in Finland to be still. Beyond the city, past the last tram stop and the last lit window, the forest is waiting with a bucket in its hand. By the time the market opens, the forest has already come to town. Under the brick arches of the Hakaniemi Market Hall, trading on this site since 1914, the stalls are laid with the colors of the woods. Pale chanterelles in paper cones,
dark heaps of bilberries, lingonberries weighed out by the litre, rye pasties still warm enough to fog the glass beside them. Much of what is sold here was not farmed but gathered, carried in from forests no one owns, under a right that belongs to everyone. The Finns call it jokamiehen oikeus, every man's right. The freedom to walk into any wood, cross any field at its edge, and fill a bucket with whatever the ground has offered, whether the land beneath is public or private or fenced. Follow one of those buckets back to where it was filled, and the law turns domestic. Out among the low shrubs of a southern wood, a child works a patch of bilberry, 2 hands and a dented tin pail, fingers stained a deep blue that no washing will lift before bedtime. The pail comes home half full and waits on the kitchen counter through the afternoon. Later, the same small fingers press the first berries flat against a sheet of rye dough, and what the forest gave in the morning is on the table by evening. A pie, a stain, a Saturday. Nothing here was bought. The wilderness has simply done the work of a pantry. The same right reaches into the country's grandest scenery and asks nothing extra for the privilege. Some 350 kilometers northeast of the capital, the quartzite ridge of Koli rises over Lake Pielinen, its highest point, Ukokoli, standing some 347 meters above sea level. In the closing years of the 19th century, the painters of Finland's national romantic age climbed this ridge and carried its view back into the national imagination, until the line of pale rock and dark forest and paler water became the landscape Finland recognized as its own. Anyone may stand where they stood. The law makes no exception for a national shrine. Elsewhere, the woods keep their own council. In Repovesi, a couple of hours northeast of the southern cities, the trails cross granite and still water by rope bridge and rowboat, and a walker may pitch a tent for a single night wherever the daylight happens to run out. "400 kilometers further north, where the Olanka River cuts its gorges near the Russian border, the same freedom holds across rapids and pine and gorge. Wind moves in the birch. Water moves over stone. The right to be there moves with whoever arrives and asks no one for a key. And it reaches all the way to the top of the map. In the boreal forests around Inari, in the far north of Lapland, where the trees thin and the ground gives way to bog and cloudberry, the berry pickers of the north fill their pails through the brief, bright weeks of autumn under the same single right that governs a city park outside Helsinki. One country, unfenced from the southern lime trees to the edge of the tundra, holds its open land in common and assumes that anyone walking through it has come, reasonably, to take only what is needed and leave the rest standing. This generosity of land, open, unfenced, assumed, was not always something a Finn could take for granted. Once, in a single winter, Barely 3.5 million people had to decide how much of it they could hold and how much the snow would let them keep.
The answer came on the 30th of November 1939. With the Second World War 2 months old, the Soviet Union crossed the eastern border with roughly 500,000 men, expecting a campaign of days against a nation of fewer than 4 million. Finland had been independent for barely 22 years. Its army was outnumbered in soldiers, in aircraft, and in tanks by margins that on paper allowed no argument. And at its head stood Field Marshal Carl Gustaf Emil Mannerheim, born 1867, a former officer of the Russian Imperial Army, now charged with holding the country that had once been a province against the empire it had left. What the paper did not count was the winter. Along the Raate Road near Suomussalmi, in the empty forests of the east, the temperature fell toward 40 degrees below zero, and Finnish troops in white, moving on skis through country they had hunted since childhood, cut the long Soviet columns into pieces and held them in the snow. The fighting on the Eastern Front lasted 105 days. By its end, the invading divisions on that road had been all but destroyed, their vehicles abandoned in drifts, and a war the world had expected to be over by Christmas had become the thing a small country is remembered for. The Finns have a word for the quality it took: sisu, a stubborn endurance that begins where ordinary strength runs out. But endurance is not the same as victory, and the snow could not be held forever. By March 1940, the Finnish line was bending, the dead lay in the tens of thousands, and the country that had astonished the world chose survival over ruin. The Moscow Peace Treaty, signed on the 13th of March, ended the fighting and took the price. Finland gave up Karelia, its second city of Viipuri, and roughly a tenth of its territory along the eastern border, handed to the Soviet Union not in defeat on the battlefield, but at the table, while the army that lost it was still, in places, unbeaten. What the treaty moved was not only a line on a map, but the people inside it. More than 400,000 Karelians, close to 1 in 8 Finns, gathered what a cart or a railway wagon could carry and left their homes for the rest of the country, never to return. In a farmhouse on the seeded side, a family banks the stove out of habit on the last morning, sets the milk pails by the door, and closes a house that will stand empty behind them, the table still laid, the fields still theirs in every way but law. The Karelian evacuees were resettled across Finland through the war years that followed, a people carried whole into a country that had to make room. The country has not let the cost go quietly. Along the Raate Road today, a low field of stones spreads across the open ground, and a structure of bells, 105 of them, one for each day of the war, sounds in the wind off the forest. Nearby stands the open embrace, two figures reaching across an emptiness they cannot close, raised to the men of both armies who died in the same snow on the same ground, far from anyone who knew their names. 2 days of railway away, in Helsinki, the dead come home to the Hietaniemi cemetery, where the war graves run in straight, pale rows down toward the sea, and Mannerheim himself was buried in 1951, among the soldiers he once commanded. On a winter afternoon, the snow settles evenly over the stones, candles burning low in the blue light. The same cold that came across the border in 1939, lying now over the men it took. A country learns to live with a cold like that, and to carry it quietly, the way it carries everything. It also learns, room by room, fire by fire, how to get warm.
The cold the country met in 1939 never entirely leaves a people who have felt it. And the room Finland built against that cold is small, wooden, and heated to the edge of what the body can bear. There are more than 3 million of these rooms for 5.5 million people, more saunas than cars, fitted into apartment basements and office floors, set beside 10,000 lakes, built into the Parliament building itself. It is the one room in the country where rank, title, and the day's argument are left at the door with the clothes. On the Helsinki waterfront stands Löyly, a public sauna clad in slatted pine that opened in 2016. Its steps running straight down into the Baltic so that bathers can move from the heat to the sea in a few paces. The word over the door is the word for the thing the room exists to make. Löyly, the wave of steam that rises when water meets the hot stones. The breath of the sauna itself. A bather climbs to the upper bench, where the heat sits heaviest, and waits. 200 kilometers north, in Tampere, an industrial city of some 240,000, laid between two lakes, the sauna is treated as a civic inheritance rather than novelty, carried by public pools, lakeside decks, apartment basements, and the cold water waiting below the city slopes. The ritual is the same in a harbor sauna and a lakeside hut. A wooden ladle lifts water from a bucket. The water meets the stones. The hiss comes first. Then the heat climbs the walls and folds over the highest bench. And for a moment, no one on it says anything at all. On the lower bench, a child sits close to a parent, knees drawn up, watching the steam disappear into the dark timber of the ceiling. Then the door opens onto the cold. In winter, a hole is cut in the ice of a frozen lake, the edges squared off with a saw, a short ladder set into the black water, and the same bather who sat in the heat lowers himself in to the shoulders, breath held, skin shocked, before climbing out and walking back to the stove. The Finns have a long faith in this swing between extremes, the heat and then the ice and then the heat again. And they treat it not as endurance, but as repair. What the room is for has never been only the body. In the 2010 documentary Steam of Life, the filmmakers Jonas Berghel and Mika Hotakainen sat with men in saunas across the country and listened as they spoke, in the heat and the half-dark, about grief, divorce, lost children, and things they had told no one, because the sauna, by long agreement, is where a Finn can finally say them. The room asks nothing and judges nothing. It is warm, it is dim, and no one is looking directly at anyone else. The truest of these rooms is the private one. In the Lake Saimaa cottage region, where the largest lake in the country breaks into more than 13,000 islands, a wooden sauna stands at the end of a jetty, its single window facing the water, smoke lifting from a black chimney into a sky that holds its light past 10. A family heats it through the evening, the way families here have heated it for generations. Not for guests and not for show, but because the week is ending and the body and the day both need somewhere to come to rest. And so the country that disagrees with the world about its own happiness comes, at the end of its single long day, back to the smallest and warmest room it owns. The ranking stays unsettled on the desk in Helsinki. Here there is only the stove, the water, the steam, and the lake beyond the door. By a lake outside Kuopio, as the light finally goes, a man reaches for the ladle, lifts the water from the bucket, and pours it slowly over the stones. The hiss fills the timber dark. Heat gathers along the ceiling, and the bench holds its breath with him. Outside the sauna by Kuopio, the steam thins, and the man steps down to the jetty, into air that has finally lost its light, the lake black and flat against the last grey in the sky. He does not hurry. The week is over, and the heat has done its work. 3 million saunas wait across the country, banked and warm. The offices on Aleksantterinkatu are dark. In the forests, the buckets stand empty until autumn. At Udi, the last reader closes a book beneath the glass. On a lakeside jetty, bare feet leave wet marks on the boards. The ranking sits unread on a desk in Helsinki. The stove ticks as it cools.